Welcome back to KOTN Late Night. Doug Lesmerises and Bill Landis with a wild Northern football weekend to wrap up. We'll run till about midnight Eastern here, Bill. We have one Northern game still going on, right? Oregon, Boise State is still, well, I guess we're going to have a couple like lingering things wrapping up, but we have most of the stuff we know what happened, including a big loss for Notre Dame, a not unexpected loss, but a pretty good thumping for Michigan. Some absolute Northern bangers coming down to the wire. Pitt wins on a last-second field goal. Michigan State wins on a last-second field goal. Iowa State wins on a last-second field goal. Great day in Northern college football, wasn't it?
It's great as in the eye of the beholder, I guess. Yeah, well, no, I think in some ways it definitely was. But seeing Notre Dame go down and then Michigan lose the way it did was not all that great for the North, I think. But there was definitely more good than bad. There were some excellent games, and then some stuff I don't know. I'm sitting at home here, and I end up watching a few games that I wasn't expecting to have an eye on because of how good they were. So it was a good day.
Yeah. No, I thought Syracuse got a really important win. I thought the win was really important for Michigan State. I thought like Friday night, the BYU win was really important. Like there were some things that really mattered, but we're starting off with Notre Dame because this really mattered. And you don't mean to put everything in a playoff context, but also I don't think we have to shy away from it because the 12-team playoff is going to be great. This was a real blow for the North, I think. Right.
Yeah.
We had Matt Fortuna on to talk about Notre Dame midweek after the Fighting Irish beat Texas A&M last week. And he's talking about how he had been writing even before the season that if they got past Texas A&M, they had a chance to be like the only undefeated team. Right. And when you and I had talked about the idea that, all right, well, who else do they have left on the schedule? Maybe Florida State, but this is really opening up for itself. And now you look at the Notre Dame schedule and you look at what's ahead and you look at the fact that they're going for an at-large and they can't win a conference championship and a loss to a MAC team. It is the biggest MAC win ever. A MAC team had never beaten a top 5 team before. So it is a huge win for the MAC, but I don't want to say that Notre Dame can't recover from this, but it blows a hole in what they want to do this year.
Yeah, I think we're pretty close to Notre Dame can't recover from it, right? I don't know that we're all the way there. Notre Dame only takes this one loss, then it's probably fine, but I also don't know if anyone's mind is in a place where they think Notre Dame might only take one loss after what they saw from Notre Dame today. And because it was more than like a lackluster performance. I don't think you lose to a MAC team just because you didn't really like come correct to a game, right? It feel like there are things with that offense that got masked, I guess, against Texas A&M. I don't know, or just like weren't necessary against Texas A&M. Just limitations that certainly over time Notre Dame I think can kind of work its way through, but in other ways it kind of feels like they're sort of back to the drawing board on trying to figure out how to score points. So. I suppose it's not over, but it's also kind of difficult to see a path forward after what they put on the field today.
Because again, two things. We have to be able to smartly analyze early season losses now in college football. One is what the loss itself means to your college football playoff chances and resume, and we can't be kicking teams out of the playoff race because they have one loss. But the other way we have to analyze it is what the loss says about you as a team. So there's an emotional, mental kind of keeping your head on straight aspect of a loss like this for Notre Dame. And then there are like the actual maybe football deficiencies. Mm-hmm. I was doing other things. I wasn't as locked in on the game, but clearly, and we are not the only people talking about this, this is a thing now that Marcus Freeman must deal with, confront, and eventually escape, because it was the defining thing of his first season as the Notre Dame head coach in 2022, that in the very first game, he did coach the bowl game in 2021, but it's his real debut in 2022. They come into Ohio Stadium. It's a very emotional game for him. Notre Dame plays well and takes a very good Ohio State team down to the wire at home. They do have a quarterback injury in that game. That's a football thing. And then they go next week and they lose to Marshall. And it's like, okay, how could you play with Ohio State and then go lose to Marshall? But then in the middle of the year, they beat a ranked BYU team and follow it up by losing to a Stanford team that finished 3-9. So that officially in a world of like, what is happening? Notre Dame wins big games and then can't follow them up. And then I think last year is not really fair because they got caught in a tough stretch with the Ohio State game, the Duke game, and then the Louisville game. They could have won the Ohio State game. They go win at Duke, and then they lose at Louisville, and it might feel like, oh, they had a big win at Duke, and now they lose. That, I think, was just more football schedule. I think it was more understandable. But it's enough in the realm of like big win and then crushing loss. This is a thing now. And I sometimes things get attached to people in an unfair way because we're glib and we're silly and we grab the easy thing to talk about. But then there are times when things get attached to people because they're deserved. And Marcus Freeman is going to have to shake this because I do think at this point, to go from Texas A&M to Northern Illinois, what these two performances were in back-to-back weeks, this sticks to you, man. And he's going to be asked about it until they can prove they win the games they're supposed to win.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I think that not to put Marcus Freeman like in the same sentence as Nick Saban after what happened today, but I think that the Marshall thing a couple of years ago was like sometimes early in your tenure you suffer a weird loss like that, right? Like did it like Nick Saban lose a weird one at LSU his first year there that everyone's like, what the heck are we doing? This guy's not right for the job kind of thing. Or maybe it was his first year at Alabama. I can't quite remember. One of those two places he lost a really bad game. And not that everyone, I don't think people were talking about it necessarily in those terms. But that's kind of how I thought about it when I lost to Marshall a couple of years ago. It's just like, it's not great, but like, I kind of get it. Like you're kind of transitioning as a program. You just came off a really tough physical game. Maybe this is just a blip kind of thing. Now that it's happened twice, like, I don't know. It definitely sticks to you. And like to see, honestly, the most damning part of all of it was Marcus Freeman in his post-game press conference standing up there and saying, we've been here before. It's like, God, like that really hit my ears in a way that was like, you're right. I don't know that you want to say that out loud, brother, because like people are really going to be questioning, I think, whether or not Marcus Freeman can handle this now. And I realize like, I probably sound like I'm talking out both sides of my mouth because I thought last week's win at Texas A&M was like an okay. Marcus Freeman has gone on the road, has beaten an SEC team, has gotten a win that I think will sort of propel his career forward at Notre Dame. And then here we are kind of back to square one with can this guy actually handle everything that, you know, is encompassed in being the head coach at Notre Dame, including having your team ready to play when you're coming off of highly charged emotional wins kind of stuff, right? Like that's the biggest thing. It's like you have to get your team ready to play every week. And Marcus Freeman seems to have a really hard time doing that.
So let me ask you, let me put you in, let me make you an AD. I met an AD today that I had not met previously. I met Heather Lake, the Pitt AD, in the post-game Pat Narduzzi news conference. I said hello to her. I also was told that that KOTN is starting to click a little bit with the Pitt folks. So like, hopefully if there's any Pitt folks out there, we're definitely going to talk about Pitt. Huge win for Pitt. We have an Eli Holstein interview. We're going to get to it. Great day for Pitt. If you're an AD, two characteristics. They are not the only two characteristics of a coach, but they are two of the characteristics of a coach. One is the get you over the top in the big games coach, right? And that is really the thing. I mean, that's the defining thing of greatness, because when you have talent and every time you're in an equal talent game, you lose, then people say, well, this coach can't get us over the top when it matters. And then there's the don't fall in the pit coach, which is win all the games that you're supposed to win. And I do think those are two different characteristics sometimes. I think they can be related. I think they actually almost can be opposite of each other. The best coaches are able to do both. But tell me if you think this is right or wrong. I think sometimes, right, that if you have a coach who keeps you on a razor's edge, like I think that can help you like not fall in the pit, right? Because they never let up. And I'm not saying that Marcus Freeman is too nice. I wasn't at Notre Dame practices this week. He said they had 2 tough practices when he was addressing this after the game. But that's one of them of like when they beat Texas A&M, it felt like, man, he has buy-in with this program. Everybody loves him, right? They rallied together in a tough environment. And then it was like, oh, they weren't sharp coming off a big win. Would you rather try to hire a coach who gets you over the top, or would you rather try to hire a coach who doesn't fall in a pit? Or, I mean, of course you want both. But it's hard to get both sometimes. It's hard to get, isn't it? Don't you think it can be hard to get both?
I think it's incredibly hard to get both. At a place like Notre Dame, I think I probably want the guy that gets me over the top. No, like if you're a team that has national titles in your crosshairs, which like whatever you think about Notre Dame's history, that I think that's how Notre Dame thinks of itself. Then you want the coach that gets you over the top.
What's the deal with Riley Leonard? Is this like I was all in on Sam Hartman last year, and I think I turned out to be wrong. Right. I think that was in the end, like that's factually wrong. Sam Hartman really wasn't what I thought he would be at Notre Dame. Really maybe wasn't quite the elevator that you thought he was going to be at Notre Dame. Is that fair to say?
I think that's fair. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Is Riley Leonard, are we like in the same thing? Are we going to be in a world where it's like, well, that's what you get for getting the Wake Forest quarterback and the Duke quarterback? What are you doing, Notre Dame? How far are we down the path of that conversation? Or, I mean, it felt like a lot of people, I think you included, thought coming in, no, Riley Leonard is actually a better fit. He's more athletic. He has a run threat. This is better than what Sam Hartman was last year. But what did you think of Riley Leonard today?
He has a lot of room to grow throwing the football down the field. I think I felt about Riley Leonard coming in this year how you felt about Sam Hartman going into last year. And like now I think I'm wrong too. It's not there. And maybe it's not there because Riley Leonard was out like for all of spring, right? Getting his ankle repaired from the injury he suffered last year at Duke. And I think he was out for part of the summer. He was available in camp, but like, I don't know, that's missed time in the offense. That's missed time building chemistry with your receivers. It's missed time just sort of generally improving as a quarterback. And he was a fairly large unknown quantity, I think, or commodity, I think, as a passer coming out of Duke. He just didn't throw the ball a whole lot. There wasn't a ton of volume there. What you knew was that he was incredibly athletic, that Mike Denbrock had just come off of a season where he really tapped into that with Jaden Daniels, and he won the Heisman Trophy, and he used his legs a lot. And you, I think, could reasonably jump to the conclusion that Riley Leonard was going to take a step forward as a quarterback in this Notre Dame offense. But it didn't look like it today. Like he didn't throw the ball all that well against Texas A&M either. He sort of made a couple plays when he had to and used his legs to escape and help out his offensive line. And then today it was like they were running them a lot. They were running them way more than I thought they would, especially early in the game. And then they kind of stopped and then just like asked to make throws down the field, sometimes routine. It just wasn't making good decisions and wasn't being accurate enough with the ball. The interception he threw at the end of the game that allowed Northern Illinois to have the ball back with a chance to win the game was inexcusable. Like they were in a position where they probably just could have just ran the ball and sat on the game up 14-13. And instead he like tried to push the ball down the field. And I don't know if he didn't see a safety or just severely underthrew it. It just wasn't a good throw. So he's got a lot of polish left to undergo to, I think, be a guy who's going to elevate Notre Dame's offense. And maybe he can get there this year because he does have a lot of raw athletic talent, more than like I think Sam Hartman did, but he's also not nearly where I thought he'd be at this stage. I get we're only 2 games in, but I really thought we'd see a different version of him. And I think it's more of the same we saw at Duke.
Oregon just punted out of its own end zone on 4th and 34. And I saw someone in the comments earlier say that if Oregon loses, Doug's other retina is going to detach. And I just want to say for the record, both my retinas have already detached. I'm out of retinas. So something else might happen to me. My ear might fall off. My elbow might explode. There's a wide variety of things that could go wrong with my body. But this is, again, like we're like we talk about the North. Nobody else talks about the North. It was a weird day for the top of the North, and Oregon is continuing this because Notre Dame, which was looking like a great playoff contender, let's finish Notre Dame conversation here. We used the word disaster in the headline and the banner for this because I don't think it's wrong to call this a disaster for Notre Dame for 2 reasons. One, because you lose in a way you've lost before that confirms people's worst thoughts about that program. which is what we already discussed. And when you have a confirming loss, a thing that people are like, I don't know, I think they might have a thing. It's like, oh, no, that's not fair. Don't say they have a thing. They've only, and then you do the thing again. And it's like, yep, they have the thing. I knew it. This is the I knew it people. Oh my gosh. The I knew it people. And I'm not like we're all I knew it people. We're all looking for confirmation. I think a thing about a team, but I'm not sure. Aha. There's a lot of ahas going on about Notre Dame right now. So that's one reason this is a disaster. The other reason is I now think it's possible they could go 11-1 and not make the playoff.
Yep. That's like the worst case. That's the worst case scenario in all this, isn't it?
Which is like, because one is just like your reputation. And like, as I've shown, who cares about your reputation, right? I don't know. Like what people think of you, what they say about you behind your back, whether you're a person or a program. Oregon's losing. My eye. Oh, my eye. What I would do is, I don't think my retina would explode on its own, is that I would probably mistakenly sword my own eye out of my head, right? That is what was like, Doug got the sword out, and now his eye is on the carpet. Should we pause the show until Oregon loses to Boise?
No. I'm just wondering if we should pivot to a Northern G5 show and only talk about Boise and Northern Illinois.
I'm ready for that pivot. All right. So it's possible. Do we now think this is because, like, what's their best win going to be? Florida State stinks. Who knows how good Texas A&M is going to be?
USC.
I guess maybe USC at the end of the year. But now we're playing like USC win versus Northern Illinois loss, and like, there are going to be some 10-2 teams who finish third and fourth in the conference who are going to have better wins than Notre Dame has. And then they're going to have the Albatross. We've brought the Albatross back. In the first year of the 12-team playoff, we are bringing back the Albatross from the first year of the 4-team playoff. That was, and it's a bird, right? So is it dead? Was the Albatross dead when it was around Ohio State's neck after they lost to Virginia Tech? Or was it like sitting on their neck? Like, oh my God, the Albatross. Reese Davis said Albatross 4,000 times that season, didn't he?
He did. Yeah.
I'm not even sure that it's a real bird. I think he might have been trolling us and he just made up a bird. And he's like, let's just see if people say it. So that's terrible for Notre Dame. Unless Northern Illinois plays NC State in 2 weeks. Now, NC State lost by 90 to Tennessee tonight, but they still might be decent. Nobody talks about the MAC at the moment when we talk about G5 playoff teams. Is that a fair assessment? Do you ever hear anybody say, I don't know, I like Toledo for real? Nobody says that. Everyone's like, I like Liberty.
I think that the MAC is looked at as a league that can only get a bid if its champion is undefeated. Yeah.
Okay.
And that feels unlikely most years because there's typically Big Ten crossover there.
The last time a group of five, last and only time until now, that a group of five team made the playoff, they did it on the back of a win over Notre Dame. That's how Cincinnati got in. So I don't know how good Northern Illinois is supposed to be, but they have a chance in 2 weeks for another power conference win after the best win in MAC history. And let's go. Like, do we want to husky it up? Like, let's go. Let's have this. If we're going to be in the North and we're going to hand out devastating losses to each other, let's use the loss for good effect and let us I would like to nominate Northern Illinois for the playoff conversation, Bill Landis.
Sure, let's do it. I like it. I don't know. I think Northern Illinois might have been picked to finish like 5th in the MAC, I think. We can do it. I'll get on that train. You know what else, while we're talking about it, you know what else is in 2 weeks? And this is not necessarily part of this conversation, but Texas A&M hosts Bowling Green in 2 weeks.
Let's go. Bowling Green, which gave Penn State everything they wanted today. Bowling Green and Northern Illinois actually were tied for 3rd in the preseason coaches MAC poll behind Miami and Toledo. So we are first officially inserting Northern Illinois into the conversation. I would like, if we're going to have a Liberty conversation, and by the way, we're never going to have a Liberty conversation on this show. If Liberty makes the playoff on this show, it's going to be like, and the first playoff game is 5 seed Penn State against, I can't remember who they're playing. I'm not even going to say their name, right? Because like I don't even want to pretend. Yeah. So let's insert the MAC team into the playoff race. Okay. because Notre Dame's out of it. The only way Notre Dame can get that if the Northern Illinois loss is like, it's a pretty good loss. They're a playoff team. Notre Dame's 11-1 with a loss to a playoff team. We got to spin this. That was really bad. You and I spent Monday saying, I think Notre Dame and Penn State might be the two best teams in the country. And then we put it out in the world.
They were 1 and 2 on my poll.
We made an extra video about it, and then people watched it, and now they're saying, what is wrong with you guys?
Yeah, a lot, I think, apparently. October 12th, by the way, Northern Illinois goes to Bowling Green. We should go to that game.
Yeah. Or we could go to Ohio State, Oregon. I mean, your pick.
Oh,
although
okay.
Oregon's going to lose to Boise, and I'm going to be blind by the time that game comes. Since we're on the topic of the MAC, before we get to Michigan, let's just shove in a Penn State conversation here. Congratulations to Penn State for not losing to a MAC team. To our credit, we did on the Thursday show say that we were like on alert for letdowns with Notre Dame and Penn State. I would just like to say to Notre Dame and Penn State, we were on alert for them, and we still did not see this coming. Like,
why weren't you? we were on alert for it. Why did you think about it? Yeah.
This was one of these, again, it's like it's the people who have a smoke alarm going off in their house, right? And they just ignored it. Like the smoke alarms were going off all week, and James Franklin and Marcus Freeman were like, it's fine. Just sleep through it. Just ignore that.
Yeah.
Like, beep. It's the Mac smoke alarm. Beep. Mac's coming. Beep.
Yeah.
Congratulations on your big win. Don't be like a beep. Ignore it. Should Penn State have lost to a MAC team also? If Penn State had lost, we just would have made it a MAC show. We would have been like, they're in the North too. And now it's a MAC show.
And everything's fine. Yeah.
How many eyeballs, speaking of eyeballs, how many of your eyeballs were on the Penn State Bowling Green game? And was there ever a moment when you thought Penn State was going to lose?
Yeah, like I just kept glancing at it. I like throughout the day, you were at the UC game and I was in Slack talking with you and Mike. I'm like, man, Penn State can't stop Bowling Green. And then like 10 minutes later, it's like, Penn State still can't stop Bowling Green. And then like a half hour later, it's like, guys, Penn State's still not stopping Bowling Green. This might get interesting. Like I made a joke in the beginning of the game because Bowling Green was tied 7-7 and kicked a field goal on 4th and 1 from like the Penn State 15. And I made a joke about Scott Loeffler kicking a coward's field goal. And it wasn't a coward's field goal. He just thought they were going to win that game. So good for him. Good for him, I guess. He's playing smart football.
He's just like, I got to take points in an evenly matched game.
Yeah.
Against Bill Landis's number one team in the country.
It was not good. It was not good.
I have
Penn State's
no regrets, though.
quite bad. Yeah.
Why? Now, did you feel like that was disinterest? Or was that like, okay. Because I mean, like, that's one of the things. Again, one of the times I saw One Direction, Zayn looked totally disinterested. And then he quit the band 3 months later, and I knew it was going to happen. It didn't mean Zayn was a terrible singer, because then he had like a single with like a model or something. I don't know. They had a song together or whatever. And it's like, he is a good singer. He had a song with Taylor Swift?
Yeah.
For real?
Yeah, it was also, I think it was also from the 50 Shades movie, I think. So he was crushing a lot of demographics there.
Look at this. This is like me being like, should I be embarrassed to talk about One Direction? And you're like, I will crush your One Direction knowledge, novice. So it didn't mean that Zayn was a bad singer. He was disinterested. So if you are just disinterested after a big win against a lesser opponent, and the disinterest makes you almost lose, but you don't lose, and it's almost all disinterest, as long as you find a way to survive, I'm willing to give you a little bit of a pass. It felt like the Notre Dame game was more than disinterest. It was like also they make terrible mistakes and they couldn't move the ball or whatever.
Yeah.
If you're saying the Penn State defense is still good, they just completely took Bowling Green for granted, then do we move on and assume that things are going to be okay?
That's kind of where I am, and maybe foolishly so. I just still think that's a very good defense that had a pretty bad day, and perhaps like didn't even bother to watch Bowling Green film going into the week from the looks of things. I will say, so it was 34-27, Bowling Green like cut into the lead, and they lined up for an onside kick and executed like the most perfect bouncing onside kick I've ever seen. And Penn State linebacker Kobe King made an incredible catch to secure
for
the
real?
onside kick. Because like if he didn't
Okay.
get it, Bowling Green was definitely going to recover it. It was perfect. And this guy made a crazy catch to make sure that Bowling Green wouldn't have a shot to march for the win.
I just want to say I looked up and Oregon was running a third down play, and 5 yards short of the marker, 9 Boise guys tackled the Oregon guy. So
yeah, they're punting.
We'll have to put an addendum. We'll have to ask Mike if he can could we put on it? Will this be one of those where we insert words like, what a terrible day for Notre Dame, Penn State, Michigan, and Oregon, because we'll have to insert the Oregon loss into the conversation. All right, let's, by the way, Northern teams did win also. Northern teams did win games. I don't want to be only a negative show. All right, we're going to save Michigan because we don't want to be only a negative show. 27 Northern teams of our 28 played this week. Purdue was off. 18 won, 8 lost, and Oregon's still playing right now. But there were several losses because teams played each other, because Illinois beat Kansas and Iowa State beat Iowa and Michigan State beat Maryland and Pitt beat Cincinnati and Nebraska beat Colorado. So like the only teams that and Northern Illinois is in the north, but like Michigan lost to Texas and Northwestern lost to Duke in double overtime on a horrible call that Northwestern's young offensive coordinator got a little bit up inside his own self. And in the second overtime, as Northwestern was handing the ball to Cam Porter and doing whatever they wanted to do on 3rd and 1, they called like a quarterback sweep and lost 8 yards on 3rd and 1.
It was bad.
When they could have had Cam Porter, who is a bowling ball, just fall forward for a half yard on 3rd down and a half yard on 4th down because they had to go. And they would have scored a touchdown. And then if they had gotten a 2-point conversion, they would have won the game. And instead, they ran the quarterback sideways. He ran so far sideways that I think just the tilt of the earth, eventually, he just slid backwards. 8 yards. He didn't drop. It was horrible. I was at the Pitt Cincinnati game. I picked Cincinnati win. You picked Pitt to win. Cincinnati was up by 21. Pitt had a remarkable rally, and certainly Cincinnati let them back in the game. But I thought it was an unbelievable moment for Pitt football. It was proof of concept on multiple things, but primarily was the new offensive coordinator that Pat Narduzzi brought in. He gets tremendous credit for bringing him in. I was talking to the AD about that, like like old dog, new tricks, like we've said it a million times on this show. Proof of concept that this offense can work, and they didn't give up on it. And then proof of concept on a freshman quarterback who had been at Alabama for 1 year and transferred to Pitt, Eli Holstein, who was so bad in the first half that he was like apologizing for it. And actually, before we have any more conversation here, I did get a chance to talk to Eli Holstein after the game, and we have a little clip we can show you here after Pitt's 28-27 win over Cincinnati.
That entire first half was on me. It wasn't on anybody else. It wasn't on anybody on the offense and anybody on the defense. It was the way that I was playing. I just wanted to apologize and told him that's not going to happen again. I ended up playing a lot better in the second half, and that's what ended up us winning.
So when you're feeling that way after the first half, right? What is halftime like for you? Are you trying to meditate and calm yourself down? Are you mad at yourself? Are you firing? What are those moments like when you didn't play the way you want to play?
I really just apologize to everybody and tell them I'm going to play a lot better. And, those guys, and especially the leaders on our team, Brandon George, Kanante, Branson Taylor, Gavin, they were all keeping me up. They were telling me, hey, man, you're going to play a lot better in the second half, and we're going to need you to play a lot better in the second half. So we weren't really, and nobody was really down in at halftime at all. We were all up. We were all talking, joking, having fun because we knew at the end of the day we were going to win the game.
So you're talking to teammates at halftime and saying hey, man.
Oh, yeah, I'm not going to let that affect me. As a quarterback, you got no choice but to be a leader on the team. Okay. I can't just sit there and be quiet and, say, woe is me. I got to go out there. I got to step up, got to play some football and, help us win the game.
This is an amazing story for you. I mean, I think a lot of people know it. Nate Yarnell is coming out of spring is okay, he's kind of going to be the guy. And then clearly you did some stuff in August to put yourself in this situation. When did you really begin to believe that you might be the starting quarterback for this team?
Once I got healthy, the entire spring I had a lingering hamstring injury, and I wasn't 100%. I wasn't able to play football like I wanted to. So, during the fall or during the summer, really, just getting out there, working out with the guys during the fall camp and everything, I kind of got a lot more comfortable with Coach Bell, with the guys out there. I ended up really believing, hey, this is going to be my team at some point. I need to play like it.
So I was really impressed by the way he played the second half, and the big thing for him in the second half was that he stopped forcing things, and like he threw a 60-yard touchdown pass where he threw like a 3-yard pass to Des Reed, and Des Reed ran the final 50 yards, and there were some guys open. He hit some throws on the move. We talked about that. He said he's always played that way. He is able to escape and keep plays alive. But I thought it showed like a connection between offensive coordinator and quarterback that was really good. Pat Narduzzi like asked after the game, did you think about changing quarterbacks because they had a competition in August? And he was like, Eli Holstein's our guy. You know, like Nate Yarnell's good too, but like Eli's our guy. And so, you know, I asked Pat Narduzzi, coming off a 3-9 year, like, what does this mean? As like incredible proof of concept for everybody in that program when they've completely revamped the offensive side of the ball with scheme and coaching and personnel, and they come back from down 21 and win a game on a last-second field goal. Like, huge for Pitt, huge.
Yeah, I was pretty certain that Pat Narduzzi was going to pull Eli Holstein out of that game. And maybe I just need to start giving Pat Narduzzi a little more credit.
Yeah, maybe you do.
Yeah. I'm glad he didn't, because you kind of touched on it there. It just seemed like Eli Holstein kind of settled into the game. I thought he was really forcing stuff early and seemed sped up. And maybe it's hard not to play sped up at times when you're in that offense and you're going so fast and the things aren't quite clicking. Maybe it's a little easier to start pressing. But I thought he was either forcing the ball down the field at times, or there were times where he would escape, and I would think to myself, like, run. You have 8 yards in front of you. Just run and take the 8 yards. And he was still trying to throw the ball down the field. And then he just really kind of calmed down in the second half. He completed 8 of his last 12 throws and had 3 touchdowns in there. And I don't think he was doing a ton. He definitely made some big-time throws in that comeback, but he was also just sort of taking what was there. And I think you need to do that in that offense that has some pretty good playmakers. And Des Reed, chief among them. That guy, and it's not just because he was my fantasy pick this week. That guy, I think, has a chance to really start captivating some people, because he is an electric player, both as a receiver and a running back, and he runs really hard for a guy who's not all that big. I was really impressed with him. I was really impressed with Eli Holstein. I'm pretty impressed just like with Pitt in general, because Pitt did this last year. Pitt went down big against Cincinnati, tried to come back, couldn't quite complete the comeback, and lost at home. I guess the difference this year is having Eli Holstein instead of Phil Dracovic at quarterback, and they got it done. And it's a really impressive win for Pitt. And I was like, this was really the kind of game where I probably would have been ready to really start lobbing some questions, I think, Pat Narduzzi's way, if they had not found the way to win this game. And now it kind of flipped the script a little bit. I think going to Cincinnati and winning on the road against a team that I think is actually pretty decent in the Bearcats.
I think they are too.
Yeah, it's a nice win. It's got Pitt has my attention a little more than they did, coming into the week for sure.
So these were the final 4 drives for Pitt in the game after Pitt was down 27-6. Touchdown, game-winning field goal. So like perfect. No room for error, and they were perfect. This is Cincinnati after going up 27-6. Punt. Last play, when they get the ball back with 10 seconds left. So they needed like one more score to put the game away. They have a really veteran offensive line. They have good running backs. Brendan Sorsby can move also. Like I think they probably should have been able to find a way to put like one more drive together when they had been pretty dominant. I had not been to Nippert before. I had a great time. I hung out with Pitt fans and Cincinnati fans in the tailgate area before the game, and talking to fans of both teams. Like, I'm not there to grill people. I've grilled people before. I've mellowed. I'm not going to go to a tailgate and grill people. Plus, they're all drunk, and they don't want to be holding a beer on camera. So I had like one guy who like did the whoop, and then you can do the interview. And then it's like, I'm very excited for the football season. We done? And it's like, I respect it. So, but I was just like, hey, why do you love the Bearcats? And they were like, I don't know about Scott Satterfield. It was like their answer to why do you love your team was, I'm iffy on the coach. And I just want people to be happy. I'm like trying to talk everybody down off the ledge. I'm getting some like, I don't know about Narduzzi. And I like you and I have gone back and forth a little bit of like, you've been more questioning of Narduzzi. I'm more like they won 20 games combined the previous 2 years. You get 1 in 9 year, and they didn't sit on their hands. They changed. I'm going to give the guy a break. So I was telling that like to both sides of it, but this is a tough one for Scott Satterfield. I don't think it was like pure incompetence, right? I think Pitt just found something and they are a good offensive team. It's tough to blow a 21-point lead. So I will be curious how Cincinnati bounces back here because they looked awesome. And the Nippert was rocking. The students were going crazy. Like it was a really good crowd. It was a beautiful day. It was lined up to be, Oregon's going to lose, by the way. It was lining up to be a wonderful day for Cincinnati football. So I did not talk to Cincinnati people after the game, but just like what I heard before the game, I'm curious how that's going to go for them. But credit to Pitt. Let's talk a little bit about Iowa State.
All right.
This was another one where I thought it's like, duh, but I think we said the words like explosiveness versus efficiency in this game, and Iowa like marched down the field to go up 2 scores with Caleb Johnson running people over on a march, and then Iowa State scored on a 1-play 75-yard touchdown pass, and it was like, this is what these teams are. But that like Rocco Becht and the Iowa State offense like found a way to move the ball, not just on deep shots, on the Iowa defense late in a way that I think maybe surprised some people. But again, I think it's more good for Iowa State than like, oh my gosh, how could Iowa do this? Because I just think Rocco Becht and those skill guys are that good, and they found enough against what everyone still thinks is an excellent Iowa defense, right?
Yeah, that's what made it impressive in the second half. It was really like my kind of view on it was that Iowa was able to string together a couple of explosive rushing plays, but really nothing passing the ball. And Iowa State was explosive throwing the ball, but really didn't have anything going on running the ball. And Iowa State sort of found its stride offensively in the second half of the game, whereas Iowa did a lot of its work early in the game. I think maybe you look back and you think there's perhaps some missed opportunities for Iowa to stretch its lead early, because it did feel, I felt some regression to like kind of old Iowa offense in the second half of that game, aside from the one drive where Caleb Johnson got loose, I think, for like 54 yards and they scored a touchdown. There was a lot of punts, a lot of 3-and-outs in the second half for Iowa. And then Iowa State just started hitting splash plays, which like I give them a ton of credit for, because you're right. I think Iowa's defense is still very good. And Iowa State just kind of kept chipping away at it and eventually found those spaces and got Jaden Higgins loose and got Jalen Noel loose a couple times. And like Abu Sama didn't have a huge game. I guess it turns out he didn't need to. I think they kind of stuck with the run enough, despite it being inefficient, to help set up some of that passing later on in the game. But yeah, I thought Rocco Becht was pretty impressive. Like if you look at the final stat line, maybe it doesn't blow you away, but if you watch some of the throws he was making late in that game and watch the way some of those playmakers stepped up, and I also think too, like watch the way that Iowa State's defense hung in shorthanded. I thought that was a 20-19. I don't care if it's 10-9 in that game to go into Kinnick and win. I think any way you do it is impressive for Iowa State.
Really important game for the Big 12 too, because Kansas State went to Tulane and was lucky to escape with the win. Cam Rising hurt his hand for Utah, and Utah like shut it down in the second half. I think didn't score in the second half against Baylor, and so it just doesn't look super impressive on the scoreboard. Kansas lost to Illinois, and so like this would have been like, oh man, the Big 12, right? And so I think both teams are going to be good still. I think they're both like 8+ win teams, Iowa State and Iowa, but really important for that conference as they try to stay in the mix to get a second team into the playoff. But I don't think
Oklahoma State came back and won too, right? Yeah, Oklahoma State
did.
was they won in overtime.
Yeah. So good win for Iowa State. And now listen, we're not here to brag. I actually worry sometimes. Do I have a huge ego? Would you say that I have a huge ego?
Yes.
I fear sometimes that my ego is still not big enough for this job compared to some of the egos that other people doing jobs like this have. And so I feel like we need to talk about ourselves more. Do you think we need to talk about ourselves more, or do you think we talk about ourselves enough?
We can talk about ourselves more when we're right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It makes sense.
Tishu and I hit the $500 real money bet this week on the Ohio State team total over 47.5. Ohio State won 56-0. We bet $500 at plus 105. We got a $1,025 payoff. If you don't watch Bets of the North on Friday morning, we started with a $5,000 bankroll. We're making a $500 real money bet each week, and then we're doing a $50 or $100 plus money like kind of underdog thing, and we hit that too. We did a 4-team money line parlay on Texas, Tennessee, Kansas State, and Nebraska. That we got at plus 210 on a $100 bet. We won $310.91. So overall, we are ahead this week alone, like $735.
Nice. For charity.
Please save for charity, for Doug, for me. Suck it, everybody else. No, for charity. We're going to give at least $5,000 to charity, but whatever we win, if we end up with a bankroll above 5,000, then we're going to give the whole bankroll to charity. But what we're not going to do is be like, well, Doug and Tishu were terrible. They took the $5,000 bankroll down to $63. Here you go. Here's $63. We're not going to do that. So, but that was exciting that we hit those two things. Ohio State, by the way, like not a ton to discuss, but as the rest of the North crumbles before our very eyes, Oregon, Penn State, Michigan, and Notre Dame, and Iowa, frankly, as the rest of the North crumbles before our very eyes, it is worth noting that Ohio State took care of business in a very Ohio State-like fashion in a 56-0 win against Western Michigan on Saturday night.
Yeah, the MAC was a little plucky on Saturday, but not in Columbus.
Yeah. Okay. K-State, lucky to escape against Tulane. It got wild at the end of the game. I think Tulane actually scored a game-tying touchdown, but they basically called like a pick on a receiver that was like super iffy. And then like some wild, like you thought they were going to lose. And like, you're sending me messages like, well, Tulane's really good. And I'm like, well, why didn't you tell me Tulane was really good before I was like, Kansas State's going to win?
I think I picked Kansas State to win by like a field goal or a touchdown.
I picked Kansas State to win by 30. So I don't Tulane, where is that in the North? Is Tulane in the North? I know it's in New Orleans.
Yeah.
Until I was 36, I maybe thought Tulane and Tulsa were the same school. Maybe.
Oh, I do that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was more Avery Johnson, the Kansas State quarterback. You were more, I'm a little bit Avery Johnson. He's a little bit Jalen Daniels. Like, we both were in love to varying degrees with the two quarterbacks in the state of Kansas. And as we sit here on Saturday night, our primary question is, can either of them throw?
Avery Johnson was much better in the second half against Tulane than he was earlier in that game. Early in the first half of that game, I sent you guys a message that said, I don't think Avery Johnson knows how to throw the ball. And then he definitely settled in. I think he might have finished like or at one point in the second half, I think he was like 10 of 11 or something like that. After a pretty lackluster first half. He ended up with 181 passing yards and 2 touchdowns, and he had 40 rushing yards. And like, I thought he was going to have some growing pains. So like, I'm not terribly surprised to see that. He needs to grow as
he's young
passer. Yeah, he is young. That was, I don't know, that game was what I thought it was going to be. So I don't know that I'm particularly alarmed by that. Like it was more high scoring than I thought it was going to be. But Kansas State also flipped the game and won the game on a fumble return for a touchdown. So defenses were getting involved. I guess the one thing is like Tulane was able to hit some big plays on Kansas State's defense that I wasn't necessarily anticipating. That I guess is probably worth keeping in mind. But no, I think Tulane is good and well coached, and that was a tough spot on the road against a good G5 team. So Kansas State just had the win. I don't really care how they did it.
Yeah, because I was like, put him in the money line parlay, whatever. So thanks for all the pregame advice. Now that you're like, Tulane's really good. And then Jalen Daniels, did he throw 2 picks or 3 against Illinois?
He threw 3, and one of them was returned for a touchdown.
Great win for Illinois. I was huge whiff by me on Illinois. I thought Illinois was going to be maybe the worst team in the Big Ten. They can run it. Luke Altmaier is more comfortable. It's the same stuff we said after last week, but they like balled out, played great defense, were opportunistic, and they beat a ranked Kansas team. This is a huge win for Illinois. Does it tell you something more about Illinois, or does it pull you back more from Kansas? Because I mean, we didn't, but there are people out there who are picking Kansas to win the Big 12 and make the playoff.
I think both, actually. Like this was a big day for Illinois' defense. We talked about it going into the game, or at least I made the point that Illinois had kind of circled this game last year as a teachable moment for them, because Kansas just kind of ran the ball all over them, and it couldn't stop them early on in that game, and it got out of hand early, and they couldn't come back and win. It was just a much better showing for Illinois' defense tonight, and particularly like its secondary. Xavier Scott and Miles Scott, 2 defensive backs, combined for 17 tackles, a sack, a tackle for loss, 3 interceptions, and one of them was returned for a touchdown. Like those guys were all over the place. And Illinois' defense was very good. Like kept the Illinois offense in the game until the fourth quarter, when then Illinois found a way to turn it up a little bit, and they held the ball for like 11 minutes of the fourth quarter and scored twice, ended up winning the game. So I think it tells you a lot about the resolve of Illinois. I think it tells you a lot about Illinois having probably a somewhat dependable defense. But then I also think at least I am asking questions about Kansas' offense, and particularly like Jeff Grimes is a new OC. I thought he called a bad game. I thought he had Jalen Daniels throwing the ball too much. Devin Neal had 14 carries. He has to have more than that. Like, that's an excuse. You have a guy who is like among the top like 8 running backs in the sport, and you gave him 14 carries on the road in a game that was tight. Just a bad job, I thought. And Jalen Daniels didn't play well, but I don't know. And maybe he's so like well regarded that you should be able to put the game on his shoulders and win. But I thought Jeff Grimes called a bad game and didn't rely on his run game enough, when the run game was like what got them the win last year against Illinois.
Who were the 2 guys for Illinois on defense that were so good?
The Scotts, Miles Scott,
Do you
Xavier
know,
Scott.
Are they members of Scott's Tots?
They can be.
Is this like the underdog? Like, finally, Michael Scott gets his redemption. Hey, Michael Scott, what you gonna do? What you gonna do? You're gonna beat Lance Leipold.
Make your
Pretty
dreams come
good.
true.
How about that? Michael Scott's redemption. How about that story, Brett Bielema? Who would have thought that the man who would redeem Michael Scott is Brett Bielema? That's the question I would ask postgame.
That's right.
Huge win. Like, really good. Like, there's a lot to like about Illinois.
Yeah,
I was
there.
wrong.
Like, yeah, and we've talked a decent amount about Zachary Franklin and Pat Bryant.
Yeah,
2 receivers at Illinois combined for 169 receiving yards.
How about Caden and Aiden, the duo in the backfield? How'd they do?
Illinois actually did not run the ball very well at all. Like it didn't matter. That's the weird thing. Like they ran it well enough in the fourth quarter to hold on to the ball and sustain some drives, but like overall, no, Illinois did not run it very well.
Okay, we are now entering officially the former Ohio State quarterback portion of the show. Here are my stats: 56 of 82 for 627 yards and 7 touchdowns.
Not bad.
Former Ohio State quarterbacks Quinn Ewers and Kyle McCord on Saturday. How's that grab you?
They were both
right
awesome.
In the old Buckeye. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Let's talk about Kyle McCord. Let's talk about Kyle McCord first. 32 of 46, 381, 4 touchdowns. Just like killing Georgia Tech with Oronde Gadsden. Just like unguardable. Just a big-bodied tight end who makes tough catches. And Kyle McCord is just Mr. Tight Window now. Like, he's just, are there conclusions to be drawn about Ohio State last season based on Kyle McCord's play now? Is it just a change of scenery thing? Is it the fact that his quarterback's coach was Corey Dennis? Like, what are we talking about? Was he this guy? And it's like, it's natural progression. Guess what? Guys in year 2 as a starter are better than they are in year 1 as a starter. And that if he was at Ohio State, he'd be doing this right now. Not that, Will Howard had a great game on Saturday too. It's not like Ohio State's throwing up their arms and saying we don't have a quarterback. But Kyle McCord, he looked awesome in their spring game, and he's looked great in the first 2 weeks of the actual season.
Yeah, I mean, Kyle McCord from a clean pocket was pretty good at Ohio State too, right? So
That's
like, I think,
So,
but I think he's been better under pressure. I still think maybe not maybe quite as good as the numbers bear out under pressure at Syracuse, but he's clearly got more mobility, I think, because he's healthy. He was playing on a bum ankle for most of last season at Ohio State, and now he's not. So he can move a little better. He had a one play at the end of the game where he scrambled for like 15 yards and then spiked the ball as he was going out of bounds. It's like, he didn't do that for Ohio State last year. If he could have done that like once for Ohio State last year, I think people might have thought a little differently about him, but he didn't do it at all. I think his longest scramble last year at Ohio State was like 3 yards. And I think it was in the Indiana game. It was the first game of the year. He didn't do it the rest of the year. So I think it is like, guys do get better one year to the next. I think that there is a whole lot less pressure on him to perform at Syracuse than there was here. And he's probably feeling a little more comfortable that way as well. So good for him for stepping up his game. He's played very well in his first 2 games for Syracuse, and I think was, largely the reason why Syracuse won this game.
I can't find the numbers. I just want to say I was looking to see what Syracuse's ACC championship odds are now. Again, I got them at 60-1 before the season. The 3 Northern teams in the ACC are 6-0. Pitt, Syracuse, and Boston College. Boston College dropped the 50 burger on Duquesne. Like I'm just
Thomas Castellanos had 4 touchdowns on 10 pass attempts.
I mean, I don't know what to tell you. Do I want to say that 3 of the 4 best teams in the ACC are the 3 Northern teams? I'll say it. So watch out. Syracuse has North Carolina State in like a month. They should be 5-0 going into that game off this Georgia Tech win, and look out. And as we've talked about before, we had Brent Axe from Syracuse.com on midweek. Their last game's against Miami at home.
Yeah, you keep pumping up NC State like that's supposed to mean something to me. They almost lost to West Carolina and then got their butts kicked by Tennessee today. That's not a good football team, man. Syracuse should win that game.
It's NC State, Doug's preseason ACC champ. NC State. Okay, so good one for Q's. What do we make of Michigan? I actually think people are overreacting to the Michigan-Texas game because a little bit to me, this was a no-duh game. So if you are now saying watch out for Texas, it's like, weren't you watching out before? And if you're saying uh-oh, Michigan, it's like, well, I don't know what you thought was going to happen at the quarterback position against Texas. So I think Michigan probably is better than they look today. And I think Texas is maybe not quite the world beater they look like today. But, when the whole national media world goes to Ann Arbor for this big showdown and they get a turd, they have to reach conclusions because they could have gone to Cincinnati Pitt. They would have been invited to go to Cincinnati Pitt. Weren't many people there. They could have gone to Iowa State if they wanted to find a great game. Are we shocked by what happened in any way between Texas and Michigan? I am not. I don't think I've changed my mind on either team, which is I think Texas is going to win the SEC and be very good and be like the 1 or 2 seed in the playoff. And I think Michigan's going to be 9-3 and at the edge of the playoff conversation, but they have a whole bunch of quarterback stuff to work out. I would have said that on Tuesday, and now 12 hours after their kickoff, that's exactly what I would say now. What changed?
Did Texas not encounter less resistance from Michigan's defense than you were anticipating?
I don't know. Maybe Quinn Ewers
I thought Quinn Ewers is very good. He played very well. He was especially good on 3rd down. Texas killed Michigan on 3rd down. I'm not surprised by anything I saw with Michigan's offense. I think Michigan's offense is quite bad right now. And I'm not entirely sure how it finds its way out of it because they have no idea what they're doing at quarterback. I was surprised a little bit, though, about how much success Texas had on offense. And it's not like Texas was gashing Michigan all game, right? But it scored 31 points. And I thought maybe my biggest takeaway, if I could single in on one thing that's not the obvious, Michigan's offense isn't good. I think that Michigan's other corner spot opposite Will Johnson is pretty suspect. I thought Texas was picking on that quite a bit.
So they portal dipped for that, right? Just like they did last year. Last year when they portal dipped in the spring, they found Josh Wallace from UMass, who turned out to be pretty stinking awesome for them. And that was huge. But it's hard when you're portal dipping in the spring. You and me going portal dipping in the spring. It's tough.
I don't know. No, they had Jair Hill was playing there.
I thought they got another guy in the portal in April, but okay.
They might have, but it was Jair Hill was the guy that I thought Texas was picking on.
Okay. So Quinn Ewers, I thought Quinn Ewers looked really good last week. Looked more mature, looked more under control, and then he followed that up with the same thing today, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that Michigan's defense did. I mean, again, Texas went missed field goal, touchdown, field goal, touchdown in the first half. Scored 24 points. So had a chance to score on every drive in the first half. Is it? I mean, again, how many quarterbacks in the country are better than Quinn Ewers? Maybe none. I don't know. Like, is it that Michigan, and again, Texas has the best left tackle in the country. Like was it just maybe them encountering potentially the best offense they'll face, and they'll see Oregon and Ohio State later. Oregon again, who's going to lose to Boise. What is happening to the North? We love to talk about the North rising up. The North kind of fell in a pit. The North fell in a pit today, Landis.
Yeah, I think we would have been perhaps a bit too chesty about the North rising up after last year.
Are we bragging or are we just trying to encourage them?
No, I think we were just wrong on which teams are rising up. When Syracuse and Iowa State are in the playoff instead of Oregon and Notre Dame, we'll still have been right. Yeah.
And Northern Illinois. Yeah, that's true. I wouldn't. I mean, I'm definitely seeing like people are burying Michigan. Like this is officially it, and it's like, well, when they started like the 4th or 5th year walk on who has never played at quarterback, like that, I wasn't expecting him to turn into Stetson Bennett. So those issues, and then I do think it contributes.
Isn't it a problem that he's starting in the first place?
Yeah. But I don't. Did people think Alex Orji was going to be Jalen Milroe? I don't know. I guess you were holding out hope for it.
Michigan tried to convince us that he was.
But I guess maybe I'm different than where I was in the preseason. But I'm not different than where I was last week when they didn't play Alex Orji, and it's like, okay, they're going with this guy. I don't know. I mean, it is a problem. The quarterback situation is officially a full-blown problem. And certainly like our Arch Manning proposed trade. Like if this is one of those where if this was the NFL, like they would be making a trade for a quarterback next week, and Mason Graham would be on his way out, and Kirk Cousins would be on his way in. Maybe could they do that? That actually would be a good trade. Trade Mason Graham to the Falcons. The Falcons can just play Michael Penix and let Kirk Cousins come back to college. That would be a good. That's like a little bit like people love movies about old people going back to college. So it'd be like a little bit of like a body swap thing, but it's not exactly, but it's like 40-year-old Kirk Cousins comes back as the quarterback of a college football team and tries to rally them. Oh, I'd watch that movie.
I bet Kirk Cousins has a Rodney Dangerfield impression that he can get into.
Yeah.
He wants to do that.
And you know what you would call the movie? Connor and Cousins. Yeah. So do you think Michigan's going to be like 6-6? Like, is this like, did you change your mind? Okay.
I don't think they're going to be 6-6 because I don't know that there are 5 other teams on its schedule that can take advantage of its weaknesses. And I thought Oregon was going to be a test, but maybe not. as we sit here now, they play USC in a couple of weeks. So that'll be interesting. Michigan's worse on offense than I thought they'd be. I thought even if they had some quarterback stuff to work through early, they'd be able to run the ball like they normally do, and they can't do that. And the fact that Michigan came out of camp like choosing Davis Warren when Davis Warren clearly has limitations as a passer, but then also seemingly not developing any kind of run package for Alex Orji that is like even remotely functional. I have a lot of questions about where this team can ultimately get to offensively. Yeah, so I don't think they're going to go 6-6, but I also don't think they're going to make the playoff now.
Yeah. Did you have them in the playoff in your final playoff bracket?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I did. Yeah.
Okay. But you did bail on Notre Dame, so congratulations on that.
Yeah, I had Northern Illinois circled. I knew that was happening.
Sharon Moore, I'm reading like the transcript from Sharon Moore. It doesn't feel like he was asked like generally about the quarterbacks, but he was asked if he considered playing true freshman, borderline 5-star recruit Jaden Davis, and he said no. The 2 picks, like I said, it's a whole team effort. Interceptions aren't just on the quarterback. It's got to be a whole collective effort on things. Meaning Davis Warren, he did a good job of putting the ball where it needed to be. The one throw he had on the seam was probably his worst throw where the guy was open. But besides that, the 2 picks that happened because one was tipped in the receiver's hands and the other one, we didn't run the right route. In that case, he did a good job managing it. So we've got to do a better job as pass catchers too. So I understand like, okay, we didn't put the true freshman in against Texas in week 2. Why wouldn't they get to Jaden Davis by the first week in October?
Yeah, I'm looking at the other schedule up in front of you.
I mean, I know they play USC
Arkansas
on
State
the 28th. Yeah.
Yeah, they play Arkansas State and then USC, and then on the other side of USC,
21st.
It's Minnesota at home, at Washington, off, at Illinois, Michigan State before they play Oregon at home. Like,
Okay. So you have the bye
unless
week there.
Davis Warren's going to get markedly better between now and after the USC game, I do feel like there's a little bit of a mid-season window there to entertain that idea.
Yeah.
Especially
Dylan
with an
Raiola
off
looked
week.
awesome today for Nebraska, right? Dylan Raiola is ready as a true freshman. So,
I thought he looked. Yeah, I actually was. I was watching the Nebraska Colorado game, thinking they probably should have let Dylan Raiola cut it loose a little more. There were a lot of screens and running back swing passes. I would have liked to see him throw the ball downfield a little more.
manage. Did Florida play? I don't care about Florida does, but did they play DJ Lagway, true freshman, a quarterback?
I don't know.
He's famous.
They were supposed to, right? Because Graham Mertz was hurt.
Kid was in concussion protocol, I think. So
They
anyway,
did win 45-7, and DJ Lagway threw for 456 yards and 3 touchdowns in his first start. So,
be nice to have him in the North. Okay. So maybe they should just play that guy. Should they just? Did I get sunburned today?
maybe. I also don't know,
I get sunblocked.
I don't know really how good Jaden Davis is. Jaden Davis.
Well, then they're then they're dead.
Well, I just whatever
what?
you
So
think
they
of
have
JJ
none? They have
McCarthy.
none?
JJ McCarthy was a 5-star prospect. Jaden Davis is little, and I think people thought less and less of him throughout his recruitment. So he could very well be better than what Michigan's trotting out there right now. But I don't want to make it sound like Jaden Davis is definitely the savior of Michigan.
Well, then what are they going to do? Then what are they going to do? They actually have to trade for Arch
They
Manning.
should have sometime in June realized they weren't going to be able to throw the ball and just become a triple option team with Alex Orji. But apparently they didn't think that was the right course of action.
I'm not bearing Michigan. It was terrible. I think Texas beat Alabama last year, and then Alabama made the playoff. So, I'm not. Texas is legitimately good. I think Texas is the best team in the SEC. And we can look back in a couple weeks after Texas has beaten Georgia, and maybe Michigan has looked more competitive and reevaluate this a little bit. But I'm not burying Michigan, the program. I'm burying their quarterback situation, which I was ready to bury after last week. So they messed it up. And so, but I understand why, right? As we said, it's well, they needed to get somebody in the portal and they didn't because they had 400 other things going on, but it's coming home to roost, man. So you can't. Yeah. So and this is one of these things too. This is the thing that I like. Well, I hate most all college football media. I hate all media. No, that's not true. I love the media. I hate individual people. No, that's not what I mean either. It's the idea that before the season, Texas was favored by 3.5 in this game was crazy. And I said it was crazy at the time. Why are they only favored by 3.5? Then the line moves and it's a touchdown. Then it's 7.5 and it's 8 maybe, right? And then before kickoff, I saw somebody was here comes the Michigan money. And I think it got down to 7. And it's okay, just because everybody's pregame evaluation and read on the betting market and the sharp money and blibbity blobbity blue was stupid. Now their own feelings are hurt because they're smart money's coming in all the Wolverines. Watch. No, it was not. It was dumb, stupid money. It was Davis Warren versus Quinn Ewers, set your money on fire money. And then it makes people extra ornery when the game goes against what they thought was going to happen. When if you really thought about it and just thought Michigan quarterbacks versus Texas quarterbacks, and then a lot of other stuff is, I don't know, in range, Quinn Ewers is 21 points better than whatever Michigan's putting at quarterback. So guess what? This happened. Exactly what should have happened. So don't overbury Michigan because you were talking about smart money on the Wolverines getting bet an hour before game time. Because people do that all the time. Your pregame evaluation was dead wrong, and the result is you bury the team more than they deserve to be buried, when what you should be burying is your own stupid opinion.
That does happen, but I don't know that I agree with that assessment of this particular game.
Oh, you bury my opinion then.
Michigan looked bad, man. They got their butts kicked, on both sides of the ball, right? It's I don't know. Like, I thought Texas was going to win. I didn't think it'd be this bad. You didn't pick Texas to win by this much, did you?
Yeah. Let's see
You
what I
did?
picked.
What was your score?
I picked Texas to win by 2 touchdowns.
Okay. Lucky for you.
So, I mean, is it my fault that I was the only person that's read
your
this
fault
game
that
the
you're-
right way?
Yeah, I think maybe that's what it is. I found Michigan to be entirely underwhelming in this game. And I thought at the very
Yes.
least that its defense would show up, and I don't know that it did. And if Michigan's defense can be made to look that vulnerable, even by Texas, who to your point might be the best offense in the country, that to me is not a team like, I don't know, worth necessarily giving some benefit of the doubt that they're going to get it figured out. So like I'm fairly ready to bury this Michigan team. I probably won't because it's week 2. And it's probably foolish to do that to anybody in week 2, unless you lose to Northern Illinois. But I was not impressed with what I saw from Michigan today. I thought Michigan, even given its limitations, should have had a better showing in this game.
I picked Texas 31-17, and it was 31-12.
So wrong. You're so wrong.
So wrong.
By the way, did you see that Texas has a turnover sword?
What?
Texas has a sword, and I think they stole this from somebody else. They have a sword that when they get a turnover, they take a deflated football and they like shove the sword through the football. And do you know what the sword is called?
No.
It's called Texcalibur. It's pretty good.
We've got a problem. Now we have a problem. Now, Texas, you've made an enemy. Listen, I was trying to defend you for being good, but now you're on my territory. So we'll see each other at the playoffs, Texas. And you bring Texcalibur, and I will name this. We'll have a contest. I actually have 2. We are going to have a reader contest, a viewer contest to name our swords. And then we'll see, Texcalibur, who the real kings are. Okay. All right. Okay. Now everything has changed. Now we're going another hour. Now I'm so mad. How do we have any Northern teams that have swords? It's just Texas. Texcalibur.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and Texcalibur has a twang. I bet you Texcalibur. Oh, that's not what swords are for.
Did you name your swords, by the way?
No, we're gonna name them together.
Oh, okay.
I didn't know. See, now I'm just a guy. I'm just a goofball who went to a Renaissance festival. But now if we're having sword war, now it's sword war.
Yeah.
All right, that's it. I don't think Notre Dame's in real trouble from like a playoff resume standpoint. Michigan is in real trouble if they can't get their quarterback position at least moderately functional, because I just think it's difficult. I mean, you look at Iowa's managed to do it for several years, but it's just hard when you have to win entirely with your defense. That is a tough way to live. And Michigan won with a lot of defense the past couple of years, but then they would make plays, right? The offense made enough plays when needed, and it just changed the dynamic of everything. And so I'm not out. I'm not all the way out of Michigan yet, but like USC Michigan's going to be like really super interesting in a couple weeks. So weird day in the North. And we're going to like recap on more of this in depth. This is a vibe show, right? Vibes and sunburn. Should I get sunburn when it's fall weather? I don't put on sunblock.
Well, that's how people got, because when it's not hot, you're not going to get burned. But guess what? The sun's still out. It was a pretty sunny day today too. Yeah, you got to be careful on these kind of. And
days. I was out with the people. When I go to these things, I'm not just there to sit in the press box. I'm there to meet the people and spread the word of Kings of the North. I'm not spreading the word, right? So, but I was shooting a video. I was shooting videos in the tailgate area, and where I am set up, there is a guy selling T-shirts. And now I'm going to get it wrong because I think it might be a Cincinnati saying that I was not particularly familiar with previous to the T-shirt person. But on the front of the shirt, it said, like, F, yeah, B, I'm a effing Bearcat or something. And the guy it had multiple swear words in it, both on the front and back of the t-shirt. And the guy was yelling the slogan of the t-shirt constantly. And I was like, I can't do an interview about like, hey, why are you a Bearcat fan with that being yelled in the background? So I had to move. But that's why I got sunburned. So we'll be back on Monday. This is Vibes. Monday is Breakdown. So we'll talk about all our teams, all our games, the Oregon loss we'll talk about on Monday.
Potential Oregon loss, yeah.
For the local fans, we'll have an Ohio State postgame show on Saturday. What time are we recording, Landis?
On Sunday.
What's today? Today Saturday?
Today is Saturday. Last week it went up at noon. So I recorded at 11 and it went up at noon. But we can discuss.
So that's on our Kings of Columbus channel. This is for Kings of the North, though, because this is everybody. Because people know that we started off covering Ohio State. So, like, we still do something for the local audience. I'm thrown. You've completely thrown me. Did you know that when you were like, I got to tell Doug about Texcalibur, and he is literally going to freak out?
Yeah. I have it in my notes in all capital letters. I was really excited to tell you about it.
I am freaking out. I really thought this was our corner. It's like nobody else has a sword. Okay. We'll be back on Monday. We'll have a lot to talk about. I was kind of hoping that Bama was going to lose because then that would have been a fun thing to talk about. They would have lost to Son of the North, Alex Golish, the head coach of South Florida, but that did not happen. But they gave him a game again for a while, right?
Yeah, I think Alabama pulled away with a score or two, but it was close in the fourth quarter. Yeah,
it was close in the fourth quarter. Okay. Thanks everybody for joining us here late at night. We will see you guys on Monday. Give us a thumb. Subscribe so you don't miss anything. We've had a great deal of fun these first 2 weeks. I'm going to Bama, Wisconsin next Saturday. And so I hope, do I have to wear sunblock in Wisconsin in mid-September is the question.
Maybe. What's the weather going to be? I don't, we're in a weird spot where it was like 60 on Saturday, but it's going to be 90 on Tuesday. So I don't know what to expect.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So thanks everybody for riding with us. We'll catch you back here on Monday. And again, we hit our 2 big bets on Bets of the North. So we just have a good time, me and Tyler Shoemaker. If you haven't watched that version of our show, we call it Bets of the North instead of Kings of the North. We drop that at 5 a.m. It's not live, but we drop that. If we were doing that live, that'd be nuts. Every Friday morning. And we're like, do you ever watch that show, Landis, or do you only watch shows that you're on?
No, I watch Bets of the North. I cashed the best bet myself.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
So we don't want to like trick people and be like, oh, these guys are right all the time. Let me bet a bunch of money on it. No. But if you just want to ride with us for a little bit, something like a reasonable amount that you could afford to lose, and then we can ride together, right? Like that's kind of fun. So
it is fun.
We're 2-0. We're 2-0 on the big bet so far, and then we hit the plus money parlay for the first time this week. So thanks to our producer, Mike Urostowski, for making us look good and sound good. It's going to be a humdinger on Monday talking about this Oregon loss. Oh, my goodness. He is Bill Landis. I am Doug Lesmerises. And that was KOTN Late Night on Kings of the North.